Go. Okay, well, let me start in prayer and then we can start the lesson. Dear Lord, I thank you so much for today. I thank you for this wonderful rain that you have sent over the last few days. I thank you for your mercies that are fresh every day. I thank you for your written word, Lord, and for the examples of our faith siblings. For these are our faith siblings that we can look at, Lord, whenever we run into a problem and whenever we have a situation where we can apply what they did. And we know that your word is truth. We know how you helped them and how they reacted and what was pleasing to you and what was displeasing to you. So they can give us guidance, Lord, on how to react in times of stress, in times of need, in the good and the bad times, Lord. So we thank you for our faith siblings from the past. Lord, I ask that you please send the Holy Spirit during this time that we're reunited here and afar. And we ask you also to prepare our hearts and our mind to what you have to say, Lord, through your word and through the scriptures. Lord, please have distractions not be a part of the of this lesson, so that we can dedicate this time to you, Lord, and find refreshment and find rest during this time. It's in Jesus Christ's name I pray, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Okay, so let's get started. Yeah, the Bible study guide, I apologize for the maps. I'm going to be zooming in when I look at these because you can barely see them here. They're so tiny, but I'll be zooming in during that time so that you can see them a little bit better on the screen. But let's start with chapter 12, verse 1. It says, "Now the Lord said to Abram, go forth from your country and from your relatives and from your father's house to the land which I shall show you. And I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great. And so you shall be a blessing, and I will bless those who bless you, and the ones who curse you, I will curse. And in you, all the families of the earth will be blessed." Okay, so we're going to discuss those first three verses at first, and then we'll go from there. It says in question 1 of our study guide, in Genesis 12:1, pay close attention to God's commands to Abram. Oh, okay. What did God command Abram to leave? Hint, look at the word from. Where was Abram's destination? Okay, so let's start with the first question. What did God command Abram to leave?
His country.
Okay, what else?
Country, his people, and his father's house.
Very good. Did you guys hear that?
No, what was it?
His father's people, the relatives, and then his father's house.
In his country.
And his country. So country, relatives, and his father's house. Those were the three things that he was asked. Okay. And where was to be, or what was Abram's destination? What did God tell him in the end of verse 1? Where was he going?
To the land that God would show him.
Okay. So it was going to be God ordained. God would show him the land. Okay. So it wasn't going to be just Abram going wherever he wanted. It's like God was directing all of this. Is that clear to everybody?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to question 2. Why would God command Abram to do so? Okay, if for whoever saw last week's lesson or you were here, why would God not want him to stay where he was at?
Those people practicing idolatry. He wanted to get him away from that, away from the people, and a different country.
Okay, did you hear that? Okay, Doc said that the people in that country were practicing idolatry, or in other words, they were pagan. Whenever the word idolatry comes up, it means that they were worshiping other gods. Okay? Whether they be in the form of a statue. Oh, can somebody mute? Joe, mute whatever you have on, because it's playing. Yeah, so whatever that was happening in that country was not of God. So they didn't worship God. It was other gods and all this stuff. And also because God wanted them to stay away from that country. Okay, so that's what Doc said. Our personal application. What does God expect us to stay away from?
Idolatry.
Okay.
From
Just spit it out. It's okay. What do you think he wants us to stay away from? Oh, here we go. Let's
from
see. Just a
sin?
second. Let me, it's from idolatry too. So he doesn't want us to like see other gods and everything, or worship or to idolize anything. A lot of the times we can idolize other things. Like you can be addicted to Facebook, you can be addicted to your iPhone, you can be addicted to a lot of different things. So yeah, so let's see, just a second. Somebody was saying that they didn't have the link, but they didn't have a link. No, that's not it. Jeez. Here we go. Copy link. Okay, copy link. Okay, a copy link. Where am I at? Messenger. Okay, test. Let's see. Try that. Try that. All right. So I sent her the link. Natalia is waiting. Okay, so let's see. And let me just send her this picture so that she can also try to log in that way. Oh my goodness, I have cat photos. That's no bueno. So let's see. I'm getting confused with all these technical difficulties. Okay, so copy, and then I'll send it to her via Messenger. Done. Paste, send. Okay. She'll try to log on. Okay, so Natalia, just to go through the first question, we already went through Genesis 2:1. It just said that God commanded Abram to leave his country, his relatives, and his father's house, and where to a land which he would show him. And where did he want him out of there? Because they were pagans. They were worshiping other gods, and they were not godly. So he wanted him out of there. And for personal application, that's what God wants for us too. He doesn't want us in places where God is not going to be the center of that situation, right? So we're to stay away from that. And we're going to go over like once we hit what they call the Pentateuch. This is Genesis is a part of the Pentateuch, or the Torah, which are the first 5 books of the Old Testament. But basically, God is going to tell the Israelites exactly why he wants them to be separated. And just to summarize it, is because he is holy and he expects us to be holy as well. Okay. Okay, so let's go to question 2. Question 2 we already went through. Question 3, compare the people from the Shinar plain in Genesis 11:4. Remember that they were trying to make the Tower of Babel and all this stuff. And then Genesis 12:2. What's the difference between their desire to make a name for themselves and Abram? Okay, Remember that God tells him here, and I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, and so you shall be a blessing. Just to review Genesis 11:4, it says, and they said, come, let us build for ourselves a city and a tower whose top will reach into heaven, and let us make for ourselves a name, otherwise we will be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. So what is the difference between what God is telling Abram and the people there from the Tower of Babel? Okay, Joe, no, nobody else?
The Bible
I'll
people.
compare the people from
trying to do it themselves and trying to make themselves like God, trying to preserve themselves as one powerful people. And Abram was God was doing that for him. God was the one that was going to bless him. God was the one that was going to make him a great nation, a great name.
He was
was
humble man who worshiped God. So
Yes.
there's a lot of difference between him and them.
Exactly. So I don't know if you all heard that, but the difference between the Shinar people or the people from the Tower of Babel and Abram is that God was going to do this for them. It was not going to be them trying to make themselves into a great name. Okay. I want you to also put close attention. Well, actually, let's go through question 4. What 3 things did God promise Abram in Genesis 12:2? And what did God say Abram would be? So let's go through the 3 things first. In verse 2, what did God promise Abram that he or what did God promise Abram that he was going to do for him?
Make him a great nation.
give him a great nation.
Yeah, what else? 3 things.
Bless him
Yeah.
and make his name great.
Yes. Okay, did you guys get that? He was going to make them a great nation. Okay, whenever God, like, when God made this promise and he told them that he was going to make them a great nation, remember that the people lived more time during that time, but they were no longer living 900 years. So does this tell you a little bit about it not totally happening in his generation? Because remember, Abram was already old when he moved. I think, let's see, did it say here?
No, he was 75.
Yeah, but he was already 75 and they weren't living that much. And right here, he's already telling them that he was going to make them a great nation. So this is not just in his generation, it was for generations to come, right? And we're going to see that a little bit more in the following verses. Okay, so he was going to make them a great nation. And he was going to bless him. And then the third thing, make his name great. Okay, what was Abram going to be?
Father of the nation.
Well, what's the end of verse 2?
Oh, a blessing.
A blessing. That's very important.
Yes.
That's why a lot of the times, if you look into like the countries that support Israel, a lot of the times they, it's really because of this. Because, God had promised, what happened to my study guide? It disappeared. God had promised Abram a long time ago that whoever, well, we're going to go over that in the next one, whoever was in alliance with Israel and, was going to be in alliance with him. So that brings us to verse 3. And I will bless you, bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you, I will curse. and in you all the families of the earth will be blessed. Very important statement. Okay, all the families. Does he say all the families of the earth? Does he say that it's just going to be his family?
No.
It says all the families. So this is including all the races, all the nations, even though he tells you that this is that he was going to make him into a great nation. So it was going to be through the land of the line of Abram. Remember that there was a lot of different lines by then. There was the land of Japheth, Shem, and Ham. He's coming from the line of Shem. But the line of Ham and Japheth, these were going to be blessed later on too because of him. Okay. But they're not of the chosen line. That's not where Israel was going to come from. It was going to be through Abraham. Okay, so what was going to happen, or what did I say this? Look again. Okay, so look again at verse 1 and 2, where God's promise is dependent on Abram's obedience to his commands. And why or why not? This is a deeper question.
Well, in a way it was because he had to follow God's commands. When God told him to move, he could have not moved and then that would have all been over, but he followed God's commands. So yes, he had to do what God told him to do.
Exactly. So it was indeed conditional, because remember that in the first verse, it's telling them to go and do things, right? Go out of your country, go out from your relatives, go out from your father's house, and then I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make you a great name. Remember that covenants are always dependent on a person's obedience. So whenever God expects things, it's not, he would make them a great blessing, but he had to do something in return. And yeah, it's like for us, it's like we need to walk in faith and we need to believe in Jesus Christ, so that we can have that eternal blessing. For those that are lost and they don't want to accept Christ, they're not getting that blessing. Okay, so it is conditional. It's still conditional to this day. Okay, and we can be a blessing to others too when we follow him and we are an example and we walk in Christ and we can tell others about him. Okay. Okay, so that's the one on that. It is dependent on his commands. In verse 12:3, what would occur to those who blessed Abram?
They would be blessed.
They will be blessed. And to those who cursed him,
they would be cursed.
They would be cursed. Very good. Who will be blessed through Abram? Just to go over that again.
The whole world.
The whole world. That's right. All the families of the earth. Okay. Think about, okay, so for deeper thought, think about the reasons why through Abram all would be blessed. Think about what we have been tracing since Genesis 3 and the future events that were to occur. Okay.
We have the gospel through him, through the Jewish nation, but the gospel comes through.
Yeah, it was a gospel, and also the seed was going to come through Abram.
Right.
So Jesus Christ was going to be the blessing to all the families of the earth, because of course those that accept Christ are blessed, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so through him all the families of the earth, were going to be blessed because he was carrying the seed. All right, him and Sarai, or his wife Sarah, together, only them together were going to bring the seed. Not Abraham and another woman or whatever, which we're going to go through that. It was going to be him and Sarah only.
Yeah.
Okay. Very important to find out. Okay. Let's go to verse 4 and 5. So Abram went forth as the Lord had spoken to him. Okay, so he's already commanded all of this. He's given him the promises. So this is what Abram does, okay? So Abram went forth as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. Now Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Remember that Haran was in the Ur of the Chaldeans, which was a pagan nation, okay? Abram took Sarai his wife and Lot his nephew and all their possessions which they had accumulated and the persons which they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan. Thus they came to the land of Canaan. Remember that God was going to direct where he was going. So apparently he had told them to go to Canaan. All right. So, okay, so we're going to do those 4 verses first. We already went through that. Okay, after God instructed Abram, what did Abram do in verse 12:4? Is everybody in verse 12:4? What did Abram do after God instructed him to go forth and get out of the country and everything? He left. He went forth. Okay, he didn't stay there. He obeyed God. Okay, who went with him?
Lot.
Okay, who else? In verse 5.
All the possessions, all the family he accumulated, was, I guess, servants or slaves or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and, as well as his herds, his flocks, and his possessions.
Yeah, who else went? Sarah went. Okay. Let me mute Joe. I'm going to mute him because I can hear things in the background. Just unmute yourself, Joe, if you want to answer. Okay. So let's see. How old was Abram when he left Haran? 75. Okay. Personal application. It's never too late to start anew or to follow God. Age is not an excuse. You can be really young or you can be really old. It's never too late to start following God. So Abram, remember that Abram came from a pagan family.
Yep.
Okay. So let's just go over this little commentary. The passage also points up the faith of Abram and teaches that faith obeys God. Abram was middle-aged, prosperous, settled, and thoroughly pagan. Yet the word of the Lord came to him, though it is not known exactly how. And he responded by faith and obediently left everything to follow God's plan. That is why he's the epitome of faith in the Bible. And you can read the other verses there that I enclosed so that you can also see how else Abram exemplified the faith. Okay, so what else on this one? The other thing too that I was going to mention, and it just entered my mind and then it left. I'll remember. Okay, in verse 12:5, who was with, and okay, I already said that. What impression does this give you of all Abram's possessions and slaves and servants? What impression does this give you of Abram's position? And where was their destination and where did they arrive? Was Abram poor?
Oh no, he was wealthy. He had herds, he had flocks, he
had a lot of possessions, right? He had
yeah,
servants.
He had a lot of people too. I mean,
yeah, so this was not a man that was, following God because he wanted something from him for monetary purposes, or because God had given him a prosperity preaching, whatever. I mean, he told him that he was going to bless him, but it was going to be in the future. It was not going to be his stuff, okay? So, although he did bless him here on the earth too, and we'll find out how. All right, so let's go to verses 6 to 7. Abram passed through the land as far as the site of Shechem to the oak of Moreh. Now the Canaanite was then in the land. Remember what we learned about the Canaanites in the previous chapter? Who were they the descendants of?
Ham.
Ham. And what had Ham done? What did he do with Noah?
He saw his father. I think it was more than that, but anyway.
Yeah, a lot of theorists think that it was not only that he saw his father, but that he had relations with his father.
Yeah.
So,
Ham was, his descendants, Canaan was cursed because of that by Noah.
yeah. So, so this is where they came from. So that's why I wanted to blow this up. They came from Haran, and then they ended up going all the way through Shechem here. So remember, they didn't have any cars. They didn't have any mechanical means to travel. But, it says later on that Abram pitched his tent. So it makes you think that they were probably, what do they call that when people travel from one place to another? Nomads.
Nomads, yeah.
Yeah, so that they were nomadic people. But they ended up in Mount Hermon. Okay, so why would God take them to Canaan? Okay, the reason for that is because Canaan was very lush. Remember that this was a land of milk and honey that he promised Moses and stuff in the later on when we're going to see Exodus. So this land was very lush. It was very prosperous. So he wanted them to be blessed there. Okay. Okay. So they came to the land of Canaan. Remember that all the earth is God's. So this is not the Canaanites' land. It's just that they ended up getting there. Remember that the land of the line of Ham, they were successful. So they got the best pieces of land that were available. And you can find that in the previous two sections where it tells you all about their descendants and how, it describes, I think it was, who was it? Nimrod. It tells you that the beginning of his kingdom was Babel and the land of Shinar, which was Babel. And then they said that Canaan became the father of Sidon, his firstborn in Heth. So all of these people were successful, but they were not of the land, the line of God. Okay. So God can give you blessings, or can give people that are not of him blessings, but making no mistake, the biggest blessing that we have is, as believers, is going to be when we're together with him for all eternity. So other people may have blessings on this earth. Don't be jealous of them, because that's just temporary. We're only here for a short time. It's more important to have treasures in heaven, okay? Not here. All right. Where else did we go? Okay, so where did Abram pass through in verse 12:6? Where did I tell you that he had passed through? So we went from Haram, they passed through Shechem, and then they went to the oak of Moreh. For some odd reason, this oak of Moreh comes up several times. So it must be pretty impressive, because it is a big landmark. Who was in the land God commanded Abram to go? This is in verse 6.
Canaanites.
The Canaanites were there. Okay. So let's go to verse 7 and 8. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your descendants, I will give this land. So he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. Then he proceeded from there to the mountain on the east of Bethel and pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And there he built an altar to the Lord and called upon the name of the Lord. All of these landmarks like Bethel and Ai are going to come up several times in the Old Testament. They are very important. So just remember, Bethel becomes a big worship site. Ai is going to become a battle site. But anyway, it was not famous then, it was not popular then, but they did go to, he proceeded from the mountain on the east of Bethel. And then let me see, I think this map is a little bit better actually. He went from Haran, passed through Damascus, Canaan, Shechem, and then he's going to end up going to Egypt later on. But he's around here, this part here. Okay. And the Lord appeared to Abram and he says, to this descendants I will give, to your descendants I will give this land. So Abram built an altar there for the Lord who had appeared to him. Then he proceeded from there to the mountain in the east of Bethel and pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called upon the name of the Lord. So he made two altars. He built one, where else? Where the Lord appeared to him, and also when he pitched his tent in Bethel. Okay, so those are two different sites. Okay, in verses, let's see. So who appeared to Abram and what did he tell him? In verse 7. Who appeared to Abram in verse 7? Yeah, what does verse 7 say?
The Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your descendants I will give this land.
Yeah, so the Lord appeared to Abram. Whenever you see the capital L-O-R-D in your Bibles,
Yep.
that means that it is Yahweh. He is the Lord of everything. He is the supreme sovereign God. This is not little God, okay? So that's who it is. Whenever it says L-O-R-D, it's God, Yahweh, Jehovah, that appeared to him. And then it tells him, it makes another promise. God repeatedly is telling Abram of these promises that he's going to give him, okay? The blessings. So what did Abram do in verse 8?
God told him that he built an altar there. Let's see. Then he proceeded from there to the mountain on the east of Bethel and pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the right or east. And there he built an altar to the Lord and called upon the name of the Lord. Now, we were discussing, what does that mean? Called upon the name of the Lord. I don't understand that.
Calling upon the name of the Lord is following God. That's what it means.
Okay.
Now, where else did we see that verse?
Well,
do you remember back in
Shechem,
Genesis?
back over in Shechem.
We're going to see, okay, let's go to, let's quickly turn your Bibles to Genesis 4:26. And I'm going to turn it here in the screen too, so you don't even have to turn it over. Okay, remember that this was the introduction to the godly line. It says Adam had relations with his wife again, and she gave birth to a son and named him Seth, for she said, God has appointed me another offspring in place of Abel, for Cain killed him. Was she still putting faith that Cain was going to be the seed? It's almost like she keeps saying here, he gave me another son because Abel was the one that was going to bring the seed. He's almost like, it almost sounds like she's already written off Cain here, right? Because she knew that nothing good was going to come from Cain. Okay.
Right.
But she said, in place of Abel for Cain. Okay. And so to Seth, to him also a son was born, and he called his name Enosh. Then men began to call upon the name of the Lord. Okay. Yeah.
Is that your phone?
Yeah, that's her phone. And then after that, we find out that all this godly line, it describes all of that. So they were walking, and Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. So that's basically what that means. Whenever you call upon the name of the Lord, remember also that Abram had been a pagan before then.
Yeah.
So we don't know whether Abram was still worshiping other gods before this, but for sure, it's telling us here for certain that he started calling on the name of the Lord, which means that he had taken the Lord as his God from that time. Okay. Okay. So in verse 9, 10, and 11, Abram journeyed on, continuing towards the Negev. From there, now there was a famine in the land, so Abram went down to Egypt to sojourn. Is that how you pronounce it? Sojourn there, or in other words, to travel there. For the famine was severe in the land. It came about when he came near to Egypt that he said to Sarai, his wife, "See now, I know that you are a beautiful woman, and when the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife,' and they will kill me, but they will let you live. Please say that you are my sister, so that it may go well with me because of you, and that I may live on account of you." Okay, so yeah, that's not bueno, right? But anyway, in verse 10, who appeared? So we already went through that. Where did Abram head to, and what did he do once he arrived? In verse 12:8, we already went through that, right? Yeah, we already went through that. In verses 12:9 to 10, where did Abram go, and where did he end up that interrupted his path to Canaan? What was happening in the Negev, when that made him travel to Egypt?
Well, there was a famine in the land, so he had to go someplace where he could live with his flocks and herds and stuff, so he could go in Egypt.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, so because there was famine in the land, he had to end up going to Egypt. And famine was very common in those days. In the Old Testament, we're going to hear about a lot of different famines. But in other words, a famine is where there's no water, there's no food, and of course, you needed to go where the food was at.
Yes.
So in that time, remember that Egypt had the Nile. They had a lot of water, and there was a very lush land. They had a lot of crops and a lot of it was not a poor land at all. Okay. Okay, so we already went through that. So let's just go through the commentary really quick. After God confirmed his promise, Abram abided in the land, or he lived in the land, waiting for the promise. But the Canaanites had all the good fertile land. Abram had to journey by stages towards the great and terrible Negev, a barren desert south of Canaan. For Israel, the call of their great patriarch, or their great ancestor, demonstrated that their promises were from God, promises of a great nation, a land, divine blessing, and sovereign protection. Yahweh's appearance and confirmation in verse 7 proved that Canaan was their destiny. But God demanded a response by faith if this generation were to share in those promised blessings. It wasn't going to be just for free and they could do whatever they wanted. God demanded a response by faith. Faith takes God at his word and obeys him. Okay? Faith is not something that we see. You know? All right. So in verses 12, 11 to 13, we find out that we find out first of all that Sarai, even though she's older, apparently she's a hottie. And so she's very beautiful. So what did Abram tell her? In verse 11.
You're my sister.
Well, that comes later on. It tells her that she was a beautiful woman, right?
Yeah.
And do you think that his story was justified? And that's just personal application. Why or why not? Because remember, if you review the family tree from last week's study guide, what was Abram to Sarai?
Well, half sister.
Yeah, she was his half sister. Okay, they were truly brother and sister. Okay, so he wasn't really like truly lying, but what was his intent behind that?
His intent was to deceive the Egyptians to think that she was his sister, not his wife.
Yeah, so Doc brought out a very good point. It was meant to deceive so that the Egyptians would think that Sarai was his sister and not his wife. Okay. Now, he did it because he was trying to protect her too, and but also protect himself.
Yeah.
Because he would say, you know, it says, and they will kill me, but they will let you live. Okay. And so, and then it tells you in verse 13, so that it may go well with me because of you, and that I may live on account of you. Okay. Now, as a woman, how would that make you feel? I don't know about you, but that almost makes me feel like I'm being used. But that's just modern thinking. Okay. In those days, I don't know what the thinking was. I know that it was, you know, remember that the man was the leader, the patriarch. They didn't have any of this, you know, equality stuff or anything like that. Okay. So is this consistent with Abram's faith so far? That's a very important question. Because what is this showing about Abram? Is this showing courage or is this showing fear?
Well, fear, I think. He's afraid, you know, he's trying to stay alive, and he don't want to be killed because he's married to Sarah. So it's just better if they just tell him, hey, you're my sister.
Yeah, so it's convenient, but what is that showing a lack of?
Well, lack of faith in God to protect him.
Lack of trust in God to protect him. Very good. Lack of faith, lack of trust. You know, God had told him all about, you know, the promises and everything. Remember that God, up to this point, I think also it's kind of hard because the relationship of Abram and God is still fresh right here, right? It's still new. He hadn't seen how God was working in his life yet. So maybe, you know, that could justify a little bit of his fear. He's obeying God and he's walking in faith, but at the same time here, he kind of falters a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And this is what I love about the Bible. I love the Bible because the people are real. It's like, this is something that we do all the time ourselves. You know, we say like, oh, it's like, I trust in God. I trust in God. It's like, I have faith. I know that he's going to come through, but we still get frightened whenever there's something that happens in our life. We still get a little shaky. It's like, is he, you know, going to come through this time? And so this, I mean, Abram was being real, and I just really appreciate it. So whenever you guys, it's like I'm doing a woman's study right now. And if you guys want to know a little bit more about it's not only women, because it should be all of us, that the way that we respond to or face siblings. So first of all, if you have a problem, if you have a situation going on in your life, of course you're going to pray to God. But if you want to look for a solution or an answer, a lot of the times we need an example of how, where to find a verse that can apply to our situation. And you can always Google, it's like, what does the Bible say about hope, fear, being tempted, all of these things. And you'll get the scriptures on that. But another thing too is you try to find a faith sibling that is going through similar situations as you are going, and just find out how they reacted and how God responded throughout the whole story. And a lot of the times you can find a big solution there. And you know that if God helped them, he's going to help you a similar way. Okay. Because God, we are of the same family as these faith siblings. We are in the family of God. So if he helped them the similar way, he's going to help us a similar way. So that's the way that we can use scripture in to apply it. Okay. All right. So let's go to see what happened in Egypt. All right. So he told him to say that she was his sister. And in verse 14, we're going to take up. It came about when Abram came into Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. Pharaoh's officials saw her and praised her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. Okay. Therefore, he treated Abram well for her sake and gave him sheep and oxen and donkeys and male and female servants and female donkeys and camels. Okay. Was Pharaoh sinning here? Or did he think, did he take, in his mind, did he do something wrong in taking this man's sister? Remember that he's under the impression that it's his sister, not that it's his.
Well, I think it wasn't wrong. He wasn't sinning.
Yeah, because it later tells us in verse 18 here, it tells us, I took her for my wife. Okay.
Yep.
Remember that in those days, the Egyptians, though, they took a lot of wives. So, but in their in their culture, it wasn't wrong because he did take her as his wife. So in verse 12-16, how did Abram get treated by Pharaoh because of Sarai being his sister? What did Pharaoh give Abram? In verse 16.
He gave him sheep, oxen, donkeys, male, female, servants, female donkeys, and camels.
Yeah, so Sarah must have been very beautiful, or he really valued her if he did all of that.
Yeah.
So he did give him a lot. So so poor Sarah, right? So what happened to Sarai? What happened to her? What did Pharaoh do? She was taken into Pharaoh's house, right? So over here, Abram is getting blessed, and Sarai is getting, I don't know. He's become the wife of this man that she didn't even know. Okay. So we're going to find out what the Lord does to Pharaoh. But the Lord struck Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. Then Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What is this you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her for my wife? Now then, here is your wife, take her and go. Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they escorted him away with his wife and all that belonged to him. Okay, so what did God do to Pharaoh first of all? In verse 17.
Sent plagues on him.
He sent plagues on him. That's exactly right. Where else did we see what does this remind you of God sending plagues later on in the Old Testament?
Plagues on to the Egyptians because they would not let the Jews go.
The Israelites go. That was during Moses' time. Remember Moses?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so God has sent, this would not be the first time or the only time. This would be the first time, but it would not be the only time that God would send plagues to Pharaoh's household. Okay, what did Pharaoh ask Abram in verses 12, 18 to 19? So what did he ask Abram? And what did he recognize that taking Sarai was wrong? He kind of recognized that she had brought his woes to him.
Yeah.
Okay, what did he
We
recognize?
don't know how he found out about that, but he knew it was, so he approached him and said, hey, you need to take her and go. He took her as a wife for himself, and now he gave her back and said, take her and go.
Which is, this is kind of interesting because in the Old Testament, we're going to find out that sometimes these pagan guys have more principles than the godly men.
Yes.
Because here Pharaoh is recognizing that Sarai is this other man's wife and that he should not have any relations with her, that it's not good, and that God has given him these plagues, right?
Right.
Later on, we're going to find in the book of Job, not in the book of Job, in not Job, the one that the Jonah. And Jonah did not want to send a message to the Ninevites that they were sinning and that God was going to destroy them. So God is like, when Jonah tries to run away, God attacks the boat where he's at. This is where Jonah gets swallowed by the big fish or the whale, what they call it. And pagans recognize that they're getting cursed by God. The pagans, the one that don't even worship God. And Jonah doesn't even care. He's like in the bottom of the boat running away. So it's like a lot of the times the pagans act better than the godly people, okay, which is not a good thing, all right? By God sending the plagues, do you think he was pleased by the arrangement?
No.
He wasn't pleased, right?
The plagues were meant to get
No, he wasn't pleased.
control.
Yeah. So it kind of tells you here that Sarai is very important in God's plan. Okay. Thank goodness that she didn't get pregnant with this man's baby, but she didn't, because it did tell us in chapter 11 that she was barren, right? All right. So what did Pharaoh do after that? In verses 19 and 20.
19 and 20.
Yeah, what did Pharaoh do? And what did he command Abram to do?
Take her and go.
Yeah, take her and go.
Told.
Okay. Yeah, because he didn't want the plagues anymore, right? Okay, I have a question for you all that are online, and please let me know. Do you guys still want me to do chapter 13, or do you want to leave this for next week? Send me a chat or send me something. Or unmute yourselves and let me know. Because it is almost 7:30.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, if not, I can keep on going. Irene, send me a text. Natalia, send me a text if you can. Can you guys stick
I'm
around?
okay.
You're
I could
okay?
stay, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, so let me keep on going because this is a nice chapter here. I like it too. Because now we're going to compare Abram and Lot. Okay, remember that they traveled. Okay, all right. So Natalia can also stay on. All right, perfect. All right, so let's keep on going. Chapter 13. So Abram went up from Egypt to the Negev, he and his wife and all that belonged to him, and Lot with him. Now, Abram was very rich in livestock because not only did he bring the stuff from Haran, now he has all of Pharaoh's stuff, right? So he has silver and gold and livestock. And before in that culture, your wealth was in your livestock. Okay. That's where you were rich. The more cattle, the more sheep, the more oxen, the more everything that you had, the wealthier that you were, because that was food. Okay. And he went on his journeys from the Negev as far as Bethel to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai, to the place of the altar which he had made there formerly. And there Abram called on the name of the Lord. What did I tell you about repetition? That it is important. So here we see our little map. He comes from Shechem, he goes to Egypt, and now we're going back. Okay, that's where we're going. All right, and we're going to learn a little bit more about Beersheba later on, Hebron, but this is the land of the Canaanites, all right? And this is Arabia. This is still modern, this is the Middle East where, all this stuff is going on. All right, so let's go over questions. Where did Abram go out from, and with whom and what? Verse 13:1. Where did he go to? From Egypt to where?
Back to the Negev.
Yeah, the Negev, remember that was a very barren desert type thing. Who did he go with?
He went with Lot and Sarah and all the stuff.
And all the stuff, yes. Okay, what was Abram very rich in? Verse 13:2.
Herds, flocks, and gold and silver.
Gold and silver, okay, which is still, by the way, very big commodity. It's amazing how it's never stopped. Is Abram's wealth an obstacle so far to him obeying God?
No.
Okay, remember what, I don't know if you've ever heard about what Jesus told the man that wanted to follow him. It's harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than a camel to go through the needle, the eye of the needle. However, this was not an obstacle for Abram. And remember, Abram did not know God before he commanded him to do all of this. So this is that's why they say that it just exemplifies the great faith that he had. And we're really going to see that with Isaac in the next chapters and stuff. It's just amazing what his faith was, and he's barely starting to know God. So this is just amazing. So his wealth was not an obstacle. He could have stayed anywhere and just enjoyed his success, but he didn't do that. Okay. What was Abram's dwelling?
Yes.
It was tents. So that's, it says that he placed his tent where he had been in the beginning between Bethel and Ai. Okay. And so we already discussed that. Okay, let's go to verses. Okay, so what else does it get repeated here? That Abram called on what? On the name of the Lord. Okay, so he's following the Lord. Okay, so let's keep on going. Now it introduces Lot a little bit. It kind of goes into his character and what he was doing and everything else. Now Lot, who went with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents. Okay, so he had flocks and herds and tents. So that means that he's also wealthy. And the land could not sustain them while dwelling together, for their possessions were so great that they were not able to remain together. And there was strife between the herdsmen of Abram's livestock and the herdsmen of Lot's livestock. Now the Canaanite and the Perizzite were dwelling in the land. Remember that all the ites are Ham's descendants, right? So, yeah. So Abram said to Lot, please let there be no strife between you and me, nor between my herdsmen and your herdsmen, for we are brothers. Remember that Lot is Abram's nephew, but they're of the same family. So that's why he's calling them brothers here. All right, so let's go over those questions really quick before we move on. It introduces Lot. He went with Abram. He's rich. The land couldn't sustain both of them because the possessions were so great. There's strife between their workers and Abram's workers. And Abram is trying to resolve the matter in a peaceful way. Okay, so in verse 13:8, I want you to go back. What did Abram tell his nephew Lot in verse 13:8?
And have first choice. Choose where you want to go.
Yes. Did I
So
skip
Abraham
that?
said to Lot, please let there be no strife between
Okay.
you and me.
Yeah, because of what? What was going on in that situation because of the multitude of what they had?
The first one were fighting each other.
Yeah, they were fighting for each other. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So it tells him here in verse 9 through 11. Abram goes on to tell him, he tells him in verse 8, first of all, let there not be any strife or no fighting. And in verse 9, is not the whole land before you? Please separate from me. If to the left, then I will go to the right. Or if you choose to the right, then I will go to the left. Now let's see what Lot did. Lot lifted up his eyes and saw all the valley of the Jordan, and that it was well watered everywhere. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as you go to Zoar. So Lot chose for himself all the valley of the Jordan, and Lot journeyed eastward. Thus they separated from each other. Abram settled in the land of Canaan, while Lot settled in the cities of the valley and moved his tents as far as Sodom. Now the men of Sodom were wicked exceedingly and sinners against the Lord. Okay, so in verses 9, Abram was Lot's elder and leader who was entitled to the better land, because remember, God had made the promise to him, not Lot. However, what did Abram offer Lot? Doc already mentioned it, but anybody else have any answers?
To share the land?
No, it didn't tell them to share. Well, no, it told them, he told them to do what with from him. Because they were already sharing the land, Joe, and that's why they were getting in a fight. So Abram told them, please separate from me. If to the left, in other words, if Lot were to choose the land in the left, then Abram was going to go to the right. If Lot chose the right, then he was going to go to the left. So he gave him a choice of the land, to choose. Abram didn't pick up the nicest land. He gave Lot that opportunity to do that. Okay. So what does that tell you about Lot? I mean, about Abram? It tells you a little bit more, and we're going to go over the little commentary over that. But just out of the, the fact that he gave him the choice, what does that bring to mind? Is Abram greedy?
No,
No, he's not greedy. It's like, to him, it really doesn't matter which land, right? Because it almost, if he's already giving them a choice of the land, it's like, well, whatever you want, it's like, that's what you do it. But what did Lot do in verses 13 to 10, 13, 10 to 11? What land did Lot choose? First of all, what did he do in verse 10?
Lot lifted up his eyes and saw the valley of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere, because the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Remember the Lord like the land is cute. As you go to Zoar.
Okay.
So
So it tells you that Lot was using his eyes to see the land, right?
yes.
We're going to go over scriptures later on. It's like, whenever you walk in faith, you do not use your eyes. You walk by faith, like it's almost like a blind instinctive just following. But Lot was looking with his eyes, right? He was looking at all the beauty of the land and everything, but he was not looking at what was the best. Okay, he was looking, it almost makes him sound like he's greedy to me. I don't know about you. So in what direction did he go?
Okay, you're talking about Lot?
Yeah, I'm talking about Lot. Where did he go in verse 11?
He went to Jordan. He chose Jordan.
Yeah, the Valley of Jordan, and he journeyed where? What's the direction?
East.
To the east. To the east. The east is never good. Remember that I told you? Whenever people travel east, it's like it's often doesn't bring good things. Okay, and what was there? Where was there? What was the condition of the city, of the place where he went?
That was
You already said that he went to the Jordan, Joe, but what was in the Jordan? What does he describe in 12 to 13?
okay. It was well watered everywhere.
Uh-huh.
Lord, just
But what city was there in that place where he
Sodom and
settled?
Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah.
Sodom. Yeah, Sodom. And how did he describe the men of Sodom? How are the men of Sodom described?
Um,
They are wicked and they are sinners.
Yeah, they're wicked and they're sinners, right? Did that stop Lot from going there?
no,
They didn't stop him from going there,
no.
okay? Because he was looking by sight. He was looking at the valley. He was looking that it was well watered. He didn't really, look at the spiritual, like at the problem there, right? Okay, so what do you think that is? So what do you think that is? And we're going to learn a little bit more about Lot later on, but it's not good. It's no bueno, man. Okay, so let's keep on going. We'll come back to that because we're going to learn a little bit more about Lot. Okay, so in verses 14 to 18, we're going to finish up the chapter. The Lord said to Abram after Lot had separated from him. Okay, so the Lord came back to Abram after Lot had separated from him. Now lift up your eyes and look from the place where you are, northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land which you see, I will give it to you and to your descendants forever. I will make you descendants as the dust of the earth, so that if anyone can number the dust of the earth, then your descendants can also be numbered. This was the original intent or desire of God for the Israelites, okay, of his descendants. Arise, walk about the land through its length and breadth, for I will give it to you. Then Abram moved his tent and came and dwelt by the oaks of Mamre, which are in Hebron, and there he built an altar to the Lord. Okay, so let's go to questions 28 to 31. Question 28. What did the Lord tell Abram after Lot had left in verses 13, 14 to 15? What did the Lord tell Abram?
Look in all directions
Uh-huh.
and be, because that was the land that God was going to give them.
Yep, that's correct. To look all through in all directions. And that was going to be the land. Who was to be blessed with the land? In verse 15.
All of his descendants forever.
Okay, I will give it to oh my goodness. Let me drink some water. I have a little itchy itch. He was going to give it to him and to his descendants forever.
Yeah.
Okay, and in verse 16, I will make your descendants as the dust of the earth, so that if anyone can number the dust of the earth, then your descendants can also be numbered. So this is a future blessing, right?
Yep.
Okay, so how would the Lord make Abraham's descendants? In verse 13, 16, how would he make them?
16.
Innumerable.
Innumerable, because they would be like what?
The dust of the earth.
The dust of the earth. I mean, there's a lot of dust in this earth, right? So they would be a lot of people. Okay. And what did Abram do in verse 13, 18? And did Abram's actions speak of him believing God's promises?
He believed him and they built an altar to him.
Yeah, he built an altar to the Lord. He moved his tent. Yeah, and so he's in position, right? Until God can give him a command, what command he's going to give him next. Okay, so let's go over the little commentary before we finish. Hardly any other chapter in the Bible describes faith so marvelously. And it's really chapters 12 and 13 because he does move, but it's more chapters 12. Well, actually, both of them. Here was a patriarch as a genuine believer and worshiper of Yahweh, whose faith functioned in the conflict. Lot, walking by sight, chose on the basis of what appealed to him. His choice was self-seeking and self-gratifying, but such a choice became dangerous and short-lived, for all was not as it appeared to be on the surface. Okay, so there's a lot of the times beautiful things bring bad things, right?
Yep.
Abram, on the other hand, walking by faith, generously let Lot choose first. Abram wasn't selfish, trusting God. He had learned that it was not by his own plan that he would come into possession or by jealously guarding what was his. He acted righteously and generously. One who believes that God is pledged to provide for him is not greedy, anxious, or covetous. Okay? Because we trust that God is going to take care of us, and that if we bless others with what we have or whatever, that God is going to provide. Okay? So, we're not to also be anxious, thinking that we're not going to have enough. We need to trust on him that he's going to give us what we need. Okay. Any questions, concerns, comments over these two chapters?
Very interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. So we're in the next chapter. I think what we're going to do we're gonna go through chapters 14. Man, these are hard names. We have the War of the Kings and everything. I'm gonna have to practice that. And then we're gonna go through chapter 15, where the promise of a son comes about.
Mhm.
I almost want to combine 15 and 16 because those are, but the problem is that if I do that, chapter 14 is not going to be enough. No, I think we better go through chapter 14 and 15 next week. And then we'll go through chapter 16 and chapter 17. Ooh, chapter 17 is a little long. Well, I'll decide. But for next week, y'all, let's do chapter 14 and 15. Yeah, the War of the Kings, and then where Abram gets promised the son. Okay, so I'll try to do the study guide actually tomorrow. I think that would be best. If not tomorrow, during the weekend, and then I'll send it to you all. Let me look at my schedule really quick so we can set an appointment for the next session. Let me see, August. I am off on the 23rd. Is everybody okay with 6:30?
Yep. 6:30.
Mhm.
6:30, 6:30, okay.
Mhm.
All right, well, let's finish with prayer, and I'm glad that you guys were able to join. All right. Oh, any prayer requests before we end?
Stop recording.
Oh, let me start recording. Yes, let me stop recording.